We welcome our Honorable Minister of Commerce and Industry and Railways, Honorable Shri Piyush Goyal ji. Piyush Goyal ji, namaskar. Welcome to this webinar of Indo-American Chamber of Commerce. Without much ado, I'll request Naushad to give his opening remarks and then we'll carry on with the session.
Anuj ko lagana.
Yes, Naushad.
Thank you, Nilesh. And once again, I welcome all of you and I welcome the Honorable Minister to this next part of the session. I think Kaku has done a brilliant job in giving numbers, facts, statistics about India. I'm not going to repeat what she has said, but the startling thing for everybody who's logged in from overseas, and you must know and you must have these numbers on the top of your mind. India's GDP has jumped up 50% in the last 5 years, and from $2 trillion to $3 trillion. FDI into India has jumped 13% in the year 2019-20 to record a 49.98 billion inflow in that period. So these are numbers, but let's get to the softer parts. While the world is changing and changing in a way that none of us had imagined, trust, values, ethics, and governance seems to be taking center stage. Over the centuries, the trade model has evolved from conquering to colonization to competition and cartels. And now it's time for collaborations. Indo-US bilateral relationships have developed into global strategic partnership based on shared democratic values and increasing convergence of interest on bilateral, regional, and global issues. This strong cooperation between the two countries is evident as the US is one of our top 5 FDI contributors, and it is India's top trading partner. America's relationship with the two most populous countries in the world is undergoing a stark, rapid, and perhaps permanent transformation. But if China is falling in attractiveness, who is filling its place? The answer, it seems, is India. Facebook announced that it invested $5.7 billion into India's largest telecom company, Reliance Jio. That this investment happened during a time when both California and Mumbai were locked down with COVID-19 is a matter that stunned many in the boardrooms across the world. While Facebook Jio deal is largely digitally driven, we believe that 2020 could mark an inflection point in the bilateral trade of goods and manufacturing investments between United States and India. With this background, we at IICC have embarked upon a bilateral investment-driven program. The first leg being Advantage India, which is a 5-part series. Our chairman of BSI committee, Nilesh Vikamsi, has worked hard in putting this all together. Thanks to his effort with our USA partners, Vidam, Kelly Dry, and IICC Greater Houston, I'm very happy that we have over 1,000 delegates logged in at this point of time, of which about 120 delegates are from overseas. I'm honored that Invest India chose to partner with us for this series. Nilesh is a chartered accountant. He's in fact a past president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. He's an independent director of numerous listed companies and a partner of Khimji Kovarji & Company. With this, I hand over the proceedings to Nilesh. All the best, Nilesh. And just as an update, Nilesh, I've just received a text saying that ANI, the news service, is going to broadcast our program immediately after we finish it. Thank you, Nilesh.
Oh,
please take over.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Naushad, for setting the tone so wonderfully. Now I request our friend, philosopher and guide and chairman of the advisory board of Indo-American Chamber, Sri Nanik Rupani ji, to give his opening remarks. Over to you, Nanik ji.
First of all, I want to really thank Piyush Goyal. I know in spite of his busy schedule, and I was insisting that this conference without Piyush Goyal will not be possible. One thing, he has never said no to me. I'm really grateful to him. And Piyush, I would like to tell you, our president Naushad, Raj Lakshmi Rao and Vikram, they were all willing. He saying, how can this conference be without, Piyush ji? Because whatever portfolios you have, whether it is power, whether it is railway, whether it is now, commerce. I think even grasping the technology, I would also repeat, when I was in telecom, you knew more than me what I was able to grasp. So I'm sure with you, the trade between America and India will be really multiplying by, I think we'll reach about $5 billion. That is our aim. And Naushad and everybody has worked so well. So many American companies have participated. So many companies from Africa. And so I have some suggestion, but when I don't want to take much of your time. We want to hear from you. When vote of thanks, I have got few suggestions. Since there are so many international participants, I would like to send you in writing what are my suggestions and what are the hiccups which can be really easily, especially the health sector and other things. I'll discuss with you during my event. I million thanks to you, Piyush. Proud of you. That's all.
Thank you, Nanik-ji, for your opening remarks. Can I request our very charming All India President of Indo-American Chamber, Mrs. Rajashri Rao, to give a welcome address and, more importantly, introduce our keynote speaker, guest speaker, Piyush ji, on this opening series of Advantage India and to bring investments into India. Of course, to the Indian diaspora, Piyush ji doesn't need an introduction, but I think his introduction is required for the international diaspora. So with this, may I request Mrs. Rao to give a welcome address and introduce Mr. Goyal.
Good evening and good morning to overseas participants. Friends, it gives me great pleasure to extend a warm and cordial welcome to all of you on behalf of Indo-American Chamber of Commerce. This webinar on Advantage India, destination for US and world companies. Now, Indo-American Chamber of Commerce has done many activities, but this is an activity for the benefit of both the countries to do business in a manner that we have never seen before. ISCC completed 51 years of existence and has taken the center stage in facilitating smooth exchange of Indo-US bilateral trade opportunities between both the countries. Today, ISCC has pan-India presence with around 2,000 members, representing cross-section of US and Indian industry. The geographical spread of ISCC is unique as it operates through 10 offices located throughout the country. These are in Mumbai, Kolkata, Delhi, Chennai, Ahmedabad, Bangalore, Cochin, Hyderabad, Pune, and Varanasi. Our member companies are involved in cross-section of all business domains. We are going to focus on our core vision of providing a platform with business activities for medium and small companies and extend support to them to come together and be partners in progress. Honorable Prime Minister, his vision of self-reliant India, Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, has envisaged vibrant economy for India. Invest India has been helping us by informing us constantly about the various economic packages, including sectoral boosts in pharma, medical devices, textiles, electronics, etc. Encouraging policies towards MSMEs, ease of labor laws, and bold reforms in FDI to promote ease of doing business in India. Piyush, ISCC is in correct position to handhold any incoming investors with a vested interest in mutual benefit of both the countries. With our existing MOUs with various states in America, the presence of our companies and counterparts there, and an encouraging relationship with US Embassy, we are eager to be a catalyst for an economic stimulus between the countries. ISCC has 30 of the top USA companies as its patron members, but its strength is in its inroad into USA MSME sector. Our Western Regional President Naushad has given the statistics of the people for the delegates of today's program, which demonstrates a reach and influence in USA and other countries. Everyone in India know about Piyush, but for those who are the foreign participants, I have to give introduction. Honorable Minister Piyush Goyal ji is a Minister of Railways and Minister of Commerce and Industry in Government of India. He is a member of the Upper House of Parliament and the Deputy Leader of Rajya Sabha. He was earlier the Minister of Railways and Coal. He has also had additional charge of Finance and Corporate Affairs twice in 2018 and 2019. Earlier, he was Minister of State for Power, Coal, New and Renewable Energy and Mines. His tenure has been in India. Indian Railways achieved its best ever safety record in 2018 and 19. Additionally, he oversaw the launch of the first indigenous semi-high-speed train, Vande Bharat Express. He also received the 4th annual Carnet Prize in 2018, recognizing the path-breaking transformations in India's energy sector. During his 35-year-long political career, Mr. Goyal has held several important positions at different levels in the world's largest opposition and political party in India, BJP, and he's a national executive. As a Minister of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Piyush Goyal has many achievements to his credit. Under his leadership, the ministry has taken up steps to promote trade, finalize national policy on ease of doing business and ease of living, finalize national logistic policy to bring down total logistics cost from 14% to 9% of country's GDP, and to boost competitiveness, drive economic growth, and make India global logistics hub, to boost and support exports in challenging markets, to provide significant fiscal concessions to the startup ecosystem. In our Honorable Minister's words, good economics makes for good politics. We are today at the cusp of a development explosion. This is his quote. Piyush ji, we are honored that you have joined us on this webinar to make sure Indo-US relationship grow further and we have better investment facilities in India. And we wish you all the best in your position here. And we are waiting for your talk to ISCC members and others. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you, Mrs. Rao. Piyush, we couldn't have a better brand ambassador of Why India. So the floor is yours now. Why India to the world company. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nanik Bhai, for your kind comments. Raju Lakshmi ji, Naushad, Nilesh, all the other senior leaders of ISCC, Kaku, Ramesh, Nair, Chris, Franzen, other distinguished dignitaries from ISCC, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, today is a very well-known day in India's history. It's the day the emergency was imposed 45 years ago in 1975, and we lost our civil liberties and democracy was throttled on this day. Something which is very dear and passionate to every American, every Indian, and which binds our two countries together. So much so that Raja knows and Nanik Bhai knows, my own mother was in the jail by the then government for being an activist of an opposition political party. Why I'm mentioning this is that the very bedrock of India and US relationship, be it trade and business, be it people to people, be it political, be it geopolitical or strategic, be it defense, in every sphere, the very bedrock of our relationship is between two democracies, one, the world's oldest democracy, and another, the world's largest democracy. And I think that is what binds and brings our two nations together, so much so that the US always was our largest trading partner, but last year it has now become the largest merchandise trading partner also. On its own, trade in goods has overtaken the earlier country who was our largest trading partner, and we are extremely delighted about that. Going forward, I think each and every Indian on this call at least will pray and wish this relationship strengthens and expands, particularly since it is a relationship between two countries who very deeply believe in the rule of law, who very deeply respect each other's sovereignty, our national interests, and respect each other's national interests. And I think it is time we gave a message to all those people who are in international trade that international trade, international business can only be successful when there's peace and harmony and when there's a collective and reasoned effort to ensure that the sovereign interests of both nations are mutually respected by each other. Therefore, I believe that the time is ripe to further expand the engagement between the US and India. We have had very, very good exchange at the highest level between the US and India over the last 6 years. We will continue to engage with the US at the political level, at the business level, and at the people to people level to further expand this relationship. And I think, in the words of George Washington, and I quote, observe good faith and justice towards all nations, cultivate peace and harmony with all. That is the ethos of the relationship between the US and India. And both of us, of course, also are troubled by the same countries and the trading practices of certain countries. So I think it's a great opportune moment for us to expand our relationship. I am in a dialogue with the US Trade Representative and with the Commerce Secretary, the Secretary of Commerce in the US, on a very regular basis. I think Mr. Wilbur Ross and I are going to be meeting with businessmen from both countries sometime middle of July. I'm going to be talking to my counterpart in the US also in the next few days to see what we can do to quickly wrap up the first immediate aspects of the trade deal that is already in discussion and move forward towards a more detailed and exhaustive and all-encompassing trade agreement between the US and India so that we can truly expand our investment frontiers, our trade frontiers, and our business engagement between the two countries in the days ahead. In fact, India offers a 1.35 billion strong market for American goods and services, and India offers a huge pool of skilled manpower to support American businesses. Similarly, India looks to engage with the US to benefit from innovation, benefit from scientific discovery, to benefit from modern ways of doing business, from high-tech products, from large pools of capital that the US has to offer. And I believe the US and India are complementary in what we have to offer to each other. There's hardly any area of discomfort or hardly any area where we cannot come to terms very quickly, given the spirit of camaraderie, given the spirit of mutual understanding and trust that we have between these two countries. Our Indian skilled manpower is youthful, well educated, and really English speaking, and fits into the needs of American businesses, whether it is working from home in India or working in the US to support American businesses to grow, flourish at cost competitive levels. Similarly, American expertise, technologies are necessary if India has to provide a better future for 1.35 billion Indians. Therefore, I think the reforms that have been undertaken under Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, particularly what we are doing under the Atmanirbhar Bharat package, which was unveiled by the Honorable Finance Minister last month, we are laying a strong foundation for explosive growth in the years ahead. We have suffered a temporary setback in the COVID period, particularly the 2 months of lockdown, but we are rapidly unlocking. And I'm happy to share with you that be it power consumption, where we're already back to 90% plus at similar levels last year, be it railway freight, goods that we move by the trains, We are at 92% of the June 2019 level already. Our exports are already at 90% plus levels of what we were for a similar period last year in June. And if we remove the oil exports, we are probably at 92, 93% levels already in June. Likewise, compared to June of 2019. So in different areas, the economic comeback, despite this being the first month of unlock, several very important commercial centers like Mumbai and Delhi still facing a lot of restrictions. The country has bounced back very quickly and rapidly, and I'm quite confident, given the very, very smart and important lockdown measures, and the whole world has recognized that India's lockdown was one of the strictest and most effective. It was necessary in March to lock down India, to prepare ourselves for adequate testing, to prepare ourselves with adequate medical equipment, train our doctors and nurses to fight the COVID disease, ensure we have supplies of ventilators, oxygen, personal protective equipment, masks, gloves, other surgical equipment, ICU beds, isolation wards. And we have used the last 90 days to good measure, so much so that where we were doing barely 1,000 tests 3 months ago, we are now equipped to do 200,000 tests every day, a ramp up of 200 times. In fact, only yesterday, the 1,000 testing center was approved. So from 1,000 tests per day in the whole country, today we have 1,000 testing centers in the country, which can test 200,000 patients. Where we could barely manufacture a few thousand personal protective equipment per day, today we have the ability to manufacture upward of 400,000 PPEs every single day, nearly 100 times. And I think we are exploring ways to consider opening up our export of PPEs to other parts of the world, so we can support the fight against COVID in the other parts of the world where there's a shortage of PPEs. Masks, surgical gloves have already opened up. When there was need of medicine in other countries, on one phone call from President Trump, India immediately provided medicines to the US and then further to 150 countries in the last 2 months. Over 50 of them free of charge as a grant to support their fight against COVID. As former Prime Minister and the leader of the Bharatiya Janata Party, which I represent, as the Prime Minister of NDA 1, in that critical phase when we saw the hardening of Indo-US relations, as well as the opening up and further strengthening of Indo-US relations in the 98 to 2004 period, Bharat Ratna Atal Bihari Vajpayee's words, and I quote, "I believe that democracy is the best guarantor for peace and cooperation among nations." I think this is what defines the relationship between the US and India. Two democracies who can best guarantee peace and cooperation amongst each other, who can best support each other's efforts to expand trade within the rule of law that we both offer each other. I think we are well poised to expand trade and business relationship. We both share high values, high culture with each other in terms of the way the American people think and work, in the way Indian people think and work, our own vibrant democracies, the way we are passionate about our sovereign rights, our sovereign unity and integrity. This strategic partnership between the US and India should be expanded towards new frontiers in the trade and business world. And I'm sure the efforts of IACC will go a long way in the three drivers to our relationship: expanding manufacturing, diversifying the goods that we produce in India and which we export from India, and ensuring that our Indian market is available to friendly countries, countries which give equal access to Indian products. And let us ensure that we work with that shared prosperity in mind for the people of India and the people of the US when we are building up our trade and economic relations with the US. As Prime Minister Modi said, our economy will rest on 5 pillars: the economy, infrastructure, improving our systems, bureaucracy, and the way we work, our vibrant demography, which includes the democratic principles that we share, and the demand-driven economy. 1.35 billion Indians aspiring for a better quality of life. I think we are poised to build up on all 5 pillars. Together with our friends from the US, we are looking for self-reliance to prepare the country for tough competition in the global supply chains. But that self-reliance should not be misunderstood as closing the doors. In fact, the self-reliance has at its bedrock the opening of relationships, but with countries who open their economies also to us in the same and equal manner. Countries which share the same value systems that India has. Companies which are complementary with India in terms of offering goods and services which India needs and which accepts goods and services that India offers. In that spirit of partnership, we have to look at self-reliance. We have to look at strong foundation of partnership and friendship being the countries with which we'll expand our engagement. And I am confident that given the recent steps that we have taken, where we'll be fast-tracking investment clearance by an empowered group of secretaries at the highest level, where we'll be setting up project development cells in each ministry to ensure handholding of American companies to support their ventures in India, where we'll be ranking different states for their investment attractiveness and challenging them to support international companies to come and invest in India, where we'll be developing incentive schemes to promote champion sectors in India, such as solar PV manufacturing, cell lithium battery storage, automobile components, air conditioners, mobiles. In all of these sectors, I think India can engage with the US, expand our trade and business with them, yet not becoming overtly dependent on only a few geographies, which may not necessarily be in national interest. Therefore, we need to expand and diversify our over-dependence on certain geographies for a number of products, particularly electronic products, auto component, and move away to newer suppliers, particularly in countries such as the US, countries such as Europe, countries in Latin America, and countries in Southeast Asia, other friendly nations who share the values of democracy and who work with India in the true spirit of partnership. The Department of Commerce and Industry, our ministries of finance, commerce, industry will all work with the American businesses in this spirit of partnership to expand our trading relationship. We have complete trust and faith in our American partners, and I'm confident that going forward, the US and India have a bright future ahead. Let us work together to take the Indo-American partnership to newer and newer heights. We on our part in government will be available to you 24/7 to support your efforts. Thank you very much.
Many, many thanks, Honorable Piyush ji, for laying a wonderful, foundation of the whole ethos of the Indo-American relationship and where you see how we are headed on the trade relationship and the basis on which the government is, putting in so much efforts on sort of de-risking various geographies and all. I have with me today Mr. Dave Springsteen. He is the practice leader of the tax services group of Vidam, a very fast-growing consulting, tax, and advisory firm in US. And Dave has some questions for you. They're one of the support partners for this program. So Dave, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Well, greetings from the US. I can't wait to get to India again to see you guys in person. This virtual world is not so exciting. But anyway, well, thank you for the opportunity to address the Honorable and Distinguished Minister. I appreciate your remarks and comments, and all the best to India on its continued success, especially the good news about COVID-19 and the rebounding that you're experiencing. Just a little background to poise my questions here. Witham recently expanded into India, and oh my gosh, instant success because of the infrastructure, the communication channels, but more importantly, the culture and the ability to trust and create business friendships immediately. So we're hoping that this will help us expand our international business, but focused on India. The next point is, as an international advisor, I often consult with clients on where they should set up. And on top of my list has always been India. And I'm hoping that India continues to grow, especially with US businesses, but more importantly, international operations. So India is the land of opportunity for sure. Now to my questions, and these are pretty basic. We're all looking to grow. Countries compete for foreign direct investment. India has been leading the way. But during these troubled times, what are your thoughts or what are your plans on attracting more foreign direct investment, especially in the manufacturing industry?
We are very clear that India cannot afford to remain dependent on low cost, low value add, and low quality products. So we are very keen to focus on certain areas where we have the competitive advantages, where given our own skilled manpower, the cost of that manpower, availability of certain resources, raw materials, minerals in India, we can grow certain sectors. But we are also conscious that every country cannot do everything. So for example, steel and aluminium, these are sectors where we think India can expand significantly and possibly even support exports and help other countries. But maybe a thing like medical devices, if they are very, very high quality MRI machines and all of those lovely equipment that the American companies make. We would love to engage with American companies and get the benefit of those technologies. And then at some stage, well, as the American companies are also looking to expand their engagement or look at new geographies which can provide them affordable manufacturing, then India will become a natural partner, given that we also provide a large domestic market and we also provide the rule of law. So I think that's the spirit in which we want to engage with the US. We have identified products where we think we can do better manufacturing in India, but at the same time, we have identified products where I think I can do a lot of business with the US. Say, for example, oil and gas. I think we can do tons and tons of business with the US on the oil and gas sector. Our defense engagement. Some of the low-cost manufacturing that you do in the US, we can actually help you make in India and supply to the rest of the world and beat all the other competition.
Good.
At the same time, I would rather buy the very high-tech products from the US because I know I'll get safe technology and I know that I'll get good technology. So it's a relationship which is really on the foundation of trust.
Right.
And irrespective of political parties or governments, the fact that the people-to-people trust is very high with the US.
Right, exactly.
That's what really defines our relationship.
Good. Thank you for
that's
that.
why our group of secretaries, this project investment cell in each ministry, the single window which I'm trying to create in my ministry, the fast track approvals that we are trying to put together. So we are really burning the midnight oil. COVID that way has provided us a great opportunity to sit and really apply our mind, because we've saved so much travel time, so much time. Otherwise, the same meeting, Nanak would have got me to fly to Mumbai. I would have spent 24 hours. Of course, I would be very happy going home also to my home city. But now in 1 hour, I'm doing what I would otherwise do in 24 hours. The rest of the working 16, 18 hours, I'm able to do so much more.
There you go. Well, thanks for sharing your vision, and I can tell you'll be successful in this growth because of your passion. So, congratulations. The second question is a little more focused. Special economic zones. Can you share what the thoughts will be on changing, expanding, or eliminating the current SEZs?
Dave, we respect the WTO. If I may take a little punt, and you won't take it amiss, a little more than you do right now.
That's fair enough.
So we are very seriously looking at how we can change from the earlier system of SEZs more to industrial clusters and in manufacturing zones, so that we are well within the rules of global engagement.
Good, good. All right, appreciate that. Do it better than the US and you'll be successful.
No,
Well,
I'm very US-India engagement, I can assure you. And Bob and I have hit it off very well. And of course, Mr. Wilbur Ross is like a father figure to all of us.
Great,
So
great.
I'm very confident that we'll do good business. I was incidentally also the minister in waiting for Mr. Obama. So as I said, irrespective of who is in government, Prime Minister Modi and his team is committed to strengthening the US relationship. And we hit it off well with both the political parties. And of course, right now we are engaged in a very active dialogue with Mr. Trump and his team, and I'm sure we'll do well together.
Good, excellent. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Dave. Now I have with me Deepak Nambiar, who's the New York resident partner.
You'll have to quickly push it.
Okay, I'll just a couple of questions, sir. We have Deepak Nambiar, who's the New York resident partner of Kelly, Dry and Warren, which is the second oldest law firm in US, more than 180 years old, and he's the chairman of its India practice group. Deepak, the floor is yours to ask some questions to the minister on the Indo-US trade side.
I'm scared of lawyers, by the way.
Can't hear.
Deepak, you're on mute. Deepak, you're on mute.
Maybe
You need to unmute yourself.
Okay, is it better?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
Now clear.
Okay, wonderful,
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Minister. It's great to have you here, and thank you so much for your insights here. Obviously, I have one personal question, which is about how do you remain so youthful all the time? But besides that, my more fundamental questions are as follows, which is, one is, while there is significant relaxation in FDI norms, concerns still remain among MNCs regarding the paperwork, licenses, and red tape, both at the state and local levels, not so much the federal level. Are there any specific steps that the government is planning to take to address such issues? That's number one. And number two, clearly the government deserves a round of applause for significantly curbing corruption at the central level. But India still figures high in the corruption index, right? What additional steps are the government planning to take to address those concerns?
Thank you, Deepak. On the first question, while we'll have to protect our security interests on some imports or some investments, I don't need to clarify that further. I mean, it's all over the place right now. Maintaining our security concerns, I think in terms of opening up, save and accept certain very, very critical sectors which affect jobs and small traders a lot, which is multi-brand retail, to some extent insurance. There are certain very, very few sectors where we do have some constraints and we may not be able to open up anytime soon. So I'll be upfront about it. If it's related to multi-brand retail, if it's related to insurance, these are sectors where there have been sensitivities and very serious concerns. Other than that, if you look up our process, almost 99.9% of the areas, we have automatic FDI, and in most cases 100% FDI. Media is one sector where there are certain concerns. Particularly now, you must remember, we are in an MFN world. So I can't have rules separately for you and for somebody else. And there are serious concerns with certain geographies, right? So there will be collateral impact, but there we are allowed, we have the ability to give government approvals in certain sectors. So defense, for instance, we are willing to go up to 100% foreign investment on the government approval route, particularly for strategic sectors. So if you want to make the F-16s in India, and there's a big market, mind you, we'll give you 100%. You keep all your trade secrets, you keep all your technology. We are not even the kind of country like many others who insists on technology transfer. India is that way very liberal. But at the same time, we have concerns about the quality of products that come in, about certain countries having, well, let's say different designs. Okay. So therefore, we will have to continue with restrictions in certain areas, but on a case-to-case basis, we can give government approval. Having said that, wherever there is any government approval required or any licensing or any process, my ministry is working very, very seriously on simplifying and making all of that online. My own effort is that sitting in New York, you should be able to run your own business, COVID or no COVID. You shouldn't be required to come here at all. And we are moving more and more towards online processes. Even wherever there's personal interaction required, it's going to be moving towards videos or VCs increasingly. And I think nothing better than that to eliminate corruption. Corruption, you can make all the big noises. Best way to eliminate corruption is transparency. And that's what we are focusing on. Transparency and equal treatment of all, save and except security concerns.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Thank you so much.
But if you have suggestions, Deepak and Dave, I would invite both of you to write in some suggestions or any pain points that you have. I'm happy to not address your pain point. I'm happy to structurally and foundationally resolve that issue.
Yeah, well, of course, you know, one of the questions one of the questions, I mean, one of the observations you had is regarding the defense sector. Oftentimes the question that we get asked in the US is, how would India reconcile or balance on one hand the Make in India policy versus inviting foreign companies to kind of do or outsource operations in India? So is there some kind of a balancing approach that the government is thinking of to kind of balance both sides of the coin?
I really didn't catch it exactly. Balancing approach on what?
On one hand, the Make in India approach for certain industries versus the need for U.S. companies and other non-Indian companies to come and start their business in India without those kind of restrictions.
They are not in any way different, because even American companies or businesses that come in or do business in India, more often than not gradually realize that given the large size of the market, at the cost of manufacturing in the US, most products get outpriced. Then you have something coming in from Southeast Asia or other geographies in and around India. So America is losing huge opportunities in the Indian marketplace because you get outpriced on value. Europe and America, at your labor costs, at your manufacturing costs, really cannot become competitive in many items. But as I said, if there's an item which is not required in very large volumes, then maybe importing is more sensible than trying to do it in India. But America is also doing the Make in America program after all. It's something which every country desires to promote jobs, to promote their economies. But America is also a practical country. I mean, if it's going to be very, very ordinary stuff, you may not want to manufacture in America. But all your Apple phones are still manufactured outside the country. But at the same time, America will look for more reliable and trustworthy partners in their supply chain going forward. So the whole world is going through a metamorphosis of sorts. And this is the time where America and India can engage much more deeply.
Sounds good. Thank you, Minister.
Do write in to me through NANIC or IACC, and I'll be delighted to respond. And I'd like to learn from your own experiences, working with other countries also, and Dave's long years of serving industry in his consulting work, I think, and your work as a lawyer. I would appreciate, and any of the other participants on this call, please do write in with your suggestions or even your observations or problems. I'm open to it. You can ask NANIC or Nilesh or Raja or any of the colleagues on the call. They've all seen me for at least 30, 35 years. So we will be delighted to hear criticism also from.
Piyush, और एक दो question ले ले. Can we take one or two more questions?
I have other engagements waiting. People, whole ministry is waiting.
Then I'll request Nanik ji to give a very well-deserved vote of thanks to.
Write them to me any other questions.
Yeah,
we'll do that. We'll collect all the questions.
Yeah, we have recorded the entire conversation, and we will be really acting on. Today we are ready to take a challenge. I got an excellent team with Naushad, Rakhi Panda, then Saurabh Shah. They are ready to really work for you. I think whenever I take a challenge, I fulfill it. I was given a challenge by Nitin Gadkari and Manoj Joshi to organize, the world richest, topmost NRIs of the world, and I took them to, Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore, and you can ask Nitin, and even LK Advani was so impressed. So when he was doing a Sindhu Yatra, he said, I want these 35, 40 top NRIs to come to Leh, Ladakh, and I was able to do it. So today we are in a very good team, and they really want to work. If you give us any assignment, I'm sure we'll take the challenge and we'll fulfill it. Now, there are certain things I would like to,
Nanik bhai, whenever it comes to Ladakh, I think we remember you.
And I was also very closely with your father, working with him, with the,
everybody has understood.
Anyway, yeah, now there are few things, I would like to, I have this, but I will, in 4 or 5 minutes, today we are importing rubbers, Ganpati, Krishna, Ganpati from China. They are all our gods are made in China. I'm sure
Let's
if you
stay
stop
out of individual countries' names.
Pardon? Okay.
We may avoid any particular geography. Let's focus on the Indo-American.
Okay. Why can't we you will be creating at least 5 crore job, and you will be saying 500 crores worth of foreign exchange. It will be a job opportunity for so many. Why not we make it? And today nobody is talking about WTO. You can put 300% taxes. Then another very important thing. Another very important thing. Our health sector needs a lot of. We are facing. I'm associated with all the best hospitals in India, whether it is Leelavati or Neurology Foundation. The things are so bad. We are losing a lot of money because the price is fixed for the treatment with the government. It's unviable. We'll really close down. The things are so bad, and so many doctors and nurses, they have got COVID because they are treating. So it's something you have to really think of. Another thing, pharma. Today, pharma industry, we are importing almost 80% of our raw material API from China. Sorry, I'm not inviting. So I think that factory has to be restarted. And our export to the world is 40% of pharmaceutical companies. So that also is very important issue. Otherwise, there will be a problem of getting medicines. Because the raw material very soon it will be over. So this is, I think, and there, there are many more changes which I would like to write to you because I have discussed.
Write in to me. We'll have to wind up
And
this
it needs your attention even for the bank changing of payment at this hour without even giving a notice. So I will write you a letter. I don't want to take much of your time, but please give challenges to IICT. Raj Lakshmi, she is the president of All India National President, and we are ready to take challenge, and I'm sure we will demonstrate and will fulfill you whatever conditions you put. That's all. And I have millions thanks to you for your time, for your I don't know. Sometimes I feel I got right over you. Whenever I asked you, you have to come. You have always come. That's why Naushad was so much after me, saying no advantage of this America. We have to have Piyush Goyal. So million thanks to you.
My privilege. Thank you, Nanik Bhai, and my greetings to all of you. Please stay safe. Take care of your and your family's health. And I pray for the success and more vibrancy, more power to the Indo-US relations. Good luck to all.
Nitin Gadkari also promised that he will talk
Piyush
to Chief
ji.
Minister of Maharashtra for hospitals. The hospitals are in very bad shape. Let me tell you, because investors, they need, good health care. So I think please look at it. I'll write to you more. Thank you.
Thank you, Piyush ji. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Piyush ji.
Thanks a
Kaku.
lot. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Can we we are slightly running out of time. My apologies to all the participants for the questions we couldn't ask the minister. He took more time and I think we needed more of his time on the session. Can I request Chris and to join on the webinar? Yes, Naushad, that's over to you.
Yeah, so Nilesh, we have the other panelists joining and we have a restriction of 6 cameras. I'll request Nanik ji and Raja to log off now. The camera. Okay.
Thank you very much. We will go quiet and get off the camera. Okay?
Yeah.
I'll get
Thank
off.
you so much. Thank you both of you. Thank you.
Congratulations,
Hey,
Naushad and Nilesh. Excellent work. Thanks, Nanik.
No, but the session is going on, just cameras to be switched on.
Pardon?
Only
Yeah,
cameras
yeah.
to be switched on. Only
Cameras to be switched on.
Yeah, you can switch me off.
Thank you.
Please.
Nilesh, please take this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Naushad. Now I think the second part of the session, since we are running out of time, without ado, let me introduce you to the 2 other panelists. We have Chris Franzen and Ramesh Iyer. Chris is the Area Vice President of Hyatt West India and General Manager of Grand Hyatt Mumbai Hotels and Residencies. He brings along with him over 30 years of experience gained in Europe, US, Australia, Russia, and Middle East before joining us in India. Swiss nationality by origin, Chris is a 3rd generation hotelier from Alpine village of Zermatt, one of the most beautiful places I've been to, and has also worked for other global hotel operators in luxury boutique hotels over the year. He started his career as a chef and then as a sommelier before spending the past 20 years with Hyatt. His Hyatt career started as a revenue manager with Hyatt Regency Dubai, followed by other appointments as the Grand Hyatt Muscat, the Park Hyatt Moscow, Dubai, Grand Hyatt Doha Hotel and Villas. Chris has a bachelor's degree from Cornell University in the US and the AIHS in Australia. He's a passionate motorbiker, cigar lover, football fanatic, and an avid traveler. He says that I love everything and everything with an engine. In his leisure time, he loves spending quality time with his family and children. When asked about his favorite band and movie, he says that he enjoys a variety of music, especially from the 70s, and his favorite movie would be The Magnificent Seven with an all-star cast. Before I give it to Chris, you have been a great supporter. You have been a fantastic council member of the Indo-American Chamber, very large-hearted. We have hosted a number of events for the Chamber. Hats off to you, and we are very glad to have you with us to give your experience of the Indo-US relationship and how you've seen Hyatt go. We've heard Kaku, how Bank of America has panned out in India, and how Hyatt is doing. So over to you, Chris.
Nilesh, what an introduction. Thank you very much. Now, I think one thing I have to add to my CV by the time I leave India is to develop a love for cricket. That's one thing I have not mastered to understand yet, even though I'm married to an Australian. Even my wife and my father-in-law have tried for many years. But since I'm in India now, and today is an auspicious date for Indian cricket, I learned, this will be on top of my list, absolutely. So it's to talk in cricket terms, it's a very hard wicket to follow after such a prestigious speaker like the minister. But nevertheless, namaste from Mumbai and a warm welcome to all viewers of the AICC Advantage India series. And please allow me also to send my greetings across India, the United States, and any other corner of the world where you may be watching us. First and foremost, I hope that you and your families are doing well and are safe and healthy. I'm grateful for the IACC and its leadership to give me this opportunity to speak to you about investing in India, a country I hold very dear and is close to my heart. Please allow me to highlight that all views I mention are my own, and my experience and speech centers around the hospitality and tourism sector. Kindly allow me to start with a brief economic snapshot of the hotel and tourism industry in my speech. COVID-19 has probably had the largest impact on the hospitality, tourism, and airlines sector. The current situation was unthinkable in our business just a few months ago. But with every challenge comes great opportunity. And may I quote the great Winston Churchill, who himself once said, "Don't waste a perfectly good crisis." Travel and tourism continues to be one of the fastest growing sectors in India, contributing nearly a tenth of the country's GDP with roughly $250 billion and accounting for roughly 42 million jobs. I mean, these are staggering figures. When I did my research, I was very impressed. India presently ranks third in the travel and tourism power ranking after China and the US. While this may seem like a very good ranking, there are opportunities where we have not even scratched the surface. And especially for the international inbound market, there is ample room for growth, and there is no doubt that we can reach second, if not even the first position. This growth is a great opportunity to invest in India, into leisure and tourism infrastructure, be it in cities or around tourism sites. Domestic travel spending generated 87% of the direct travel and tourism GDP in 2018. The leisure wallet also continues to dominate, accounting for 95% of the direct travel and tourism GDP of the country. % over the previous year. The e-visa scheme was availed by 2.4 million tourists, registering a growth of almost 40% over 2017. These recent modifications made by the Home Ministry to further liberalize and ease the process are a welcome step and will increase international tourism, which will increase business for all of us. Now, let me put the 10 million international tourists into perspective. The city of New York in 2019 welcomed 65 million tourists. This is why I say that there is so much opportunity and why people and companies should invest into India now. At current, India welcomes more business travelers than leisure tourists. The argument for more international leisure tourism is evident. India as a country has one of the largest number of non-resident citizens or non-resident Indians with over 17.5 million regular visitors from that captive audience alone. India lists 39 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, making it into the top 5 globally. In India, we have a diverse nature ranging from the snow-capped Himalayan mountain ranges in the north, the Golden Triangle in the northwest, to the tea plantations in the east, vast deserts in the west again, and sumptuous green mangrove forests in the south. While many large and known cities such as Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai, Hyderabad, and Ahmedabad do have a good inventory of hotel rooms, there is still great opportunities to invest in secondary and tertiary cities where establishing a foothold can be very cost effective, and the returns will be there for years to come due to the projected double-digit growth in most states. The government is also making serious efforts to boost investment in the tourism sector. In the hotel and tourism sector, 100% foreign direct investment is possible, and a 5-year tax holiday has been offered for 2, 3, 4, and 5-star hotels located around UNESCO World Heritage Sites, with the exception of Delhi and Mumbai. The government of India continues to launch branding and marketing initiatives, with the Incredible India campaign having been the most successful one to provide a focused impetus to growth and targeting the international market. The Indian government has also released a fresh category of visas, the medical visa or M-visa, to encourage medical tourism in the country. India is working to achieve 1% share in the world's international tourist arrivals by 2021 and the 2% share by 2025. So that means they're doubling. They plan to double the amount of international tourists within just 4 years. This would be a massive achievement. All these people need beds. India offers what many countries cannot. The workforce is young, motivated, and highly skilled, and much more economical to hire than in other developed countries. In addition to these advantages, they are fluent in English due to the educational system in the country. India has welcomed international hotel operators now for several decades. Hyatt has been in India as one of the first international companies since 1984, when the first hotel in Delhi was opened. If you decide to invest in India, my recommendation would be that you engage with partners that have valuable information, experience in navigating the sectors and the laws of the respective state to ensure you go through the process of opening a company and investing into the country swiftly. Please allow me to recap once more the major points why I think investing in India in the hotel and tourism sector makes sense. International tourism has boundless opportunities to go. India promotes tourism heavily and sees it as an important sector contributing to the country's GDP. English-speaking, skilled, young, and motivated staff or workforce. International brand recognition of American companies. Ease of doing business if you are associated with the right partners. In conclusion, please allow me to thank each and every one of you for your time and for giving me the opportunity to connect with you. It has been a pleasure, and I would like to specifically thank the President of the IACC, Mrs. Rachla Bakridao, and the President of the IACC West India Council, or a pleasant morning, wherever you are.
Thank you, Chris, for your wonderful, brief but very wonderful session on the opportunities in the hospitality sector, especially the hotels and the tourism. I'm sure it will interest a lot of the international players to come into India post this COVID period. I think we're living with this COVID period, but hopefully, I think we'll be out touring, staying in hotels, sightseeing. So thanks for being with us.
Absolutely.
Friends, I have the good fortune of now introducing Ramesh Nair. Ramesh is the CEO and country head of JLL India. JLL is a market leader in terms of market share, revenues, profitability, and team size for all the business lines related to real estate in India. JLL is a Fortune 500 company creating value for owners, investors, and users of real estate. For the last 22 years, Ramesh has worked across diverse asset classes such as office, land, retail, residential, warehousing, and industrial advising, leading domestic and multinational owners, investors, and occupiers. Ramesh is a product of Harvard Business School Advanced Management Program. Ramesh, we are glad to have you here and for you to share the experience of JLL in India, of the operations in India, so it becomes a motivation for the other players world over to look at India. Thanks, Ramesh, for being there.
Thanks, Nilesh. How much time do I have?
Your time, 15 minutes should be enough.
Great, perfect. So we set up our business in India in 1997, and we've been around for the last 23 years. Back then, when we set up, JLL globally has a global real estate transparency index. So India was not even in that list. They used to have 100 countries ranked around transparency. Today we are in the 30s in that list. So that's a big progress. I still remember India, because JLL operates in more than 80 countries globally. And our ranking within that list used to be like India's football team ranking. But today we are JLL's 7th largest country out of those 80 countries. We do over $600 million of business. And over the last 10 years, we have grown, over the last 23 years, we have grown to a team of 12,000 people in India. In an industry like real estate, which is perceived to be not so transparent and very opaque. So I think those are the opportunities today India offers. Like I said, we have 12,000 people, and in the last 10 years, in spite of the Indian real estate going through many ups and downs, we have still grown at a CAGR of 14%, which is quite good from an overall global perspective also. I was just preparing for this speech, and I realized in the last 6 years, more American companies have leased office space in India than Indian companies. So close to 110 million square feet have been leased to American companies in the last 5 to 6 years, while only 90 million square feet has been leased to Indian companies. So I think that's the partnership which India has with Americas, and we are very, very proud of a lot. I've seen many American clients of ours, companies like Accenture or IBM, all of them who have more than 100,000 employees in India. There's so many banks which have crossed more than 50,000 employees in India, operating their global in-house centers. I'll touch a little bit about what's a little bit about the software industry. Everybody speaks, everybody knows about the IT and the BPM industry. I'll focus more on the industrial part of India more than that. But looking at the software revenues, we do $190 billion of software revenues from India, out of which 150 billion, nearly 150 billion is exported. Close to 4.5 million people are employed. And today, India started off as back office, call centers, low-end back office processing kind of work. Today the kind of technical things which companies, software companies, the tech companies do in India, from cloud computing to big data to cyber security to artificial intelligence, IoT, robotics, blockchain, all this is done by companies, and even during tough times, I've seen these companies grow at 8 to 10%. I think 2-3 key takeaways I want to leave behind in today's discussion. China is very big in terms of manufacturing. I think India cannot compete with China today, at least. I think for companies, I think the key word, there's one word you would, or one phrase you will remember from today's discussion, my short talk, is any company looking at China plus one. I think the key word here is China plus one. People who want to de-risk have one more manufacturing location. I think India kind of perfectly fits into that. I know we are a country which runs trade deficits, but we are also a country which has a trust surplus. A lot of things have improved in India. I'll touch upon that. That's the second thing I want you to remember. The first thing is China plus one. Second is trust surplus. And the third is, like you heard Piyush Goyal, Honorable Minister Piyush Goyal speak, the government is willing to go that extra mile. Today we're seeing so many initiatives, not just from the central government, but also from various state governments. I'll touch upon that also. So those are the three things. We want to go that extra mile as a country, China plus one, and trust surplus as a country. So I think this is India's manufacturing a golden chance to emerge from the shadows of the country's services sector. I spoke about the 190 billion IT service sector. This is India has always been, China has been known as the factory of the world. India is known as the back office of the world. But this is that opportunity for India to rise up. There is definitely, we can see rising demand in India from multinationals and the desire, all of them who desire to diversify their production basis. Obviously, India needs to fix a few things. There has to be certain land reforms, there's labor reforms, infrastructure. The government is working on all that, very focused on improving, and I'll cover some of those things. I think this is a great opportunity, especially for skill-intensive sectors, whether it's auto components, engineering goods, generic pharma, small cars. India offers probably one of the best manufacturing destinations in the world. Today, a lot of global companies are seeking to diversify their production and sources of supply beyond China, not just to address rising costs in China, but also to look at where they can capture domestic demand. And the minister said, India has one of the largest middle class populations in the world. India also has 1.3 billion people. The country today is becoming a very alternate viable for manufacturing to China, ranging from apparels to auto components to very skill intensive sectors. All India scoring quite well on that. Today, if you look at it as attractive levels of some of these countries kind of go down, we are seeing, just look at during the lockdown, the kind of investments you saw. Facebook investing nearly $6 billion with Reliance, which is one of the country's largest telecom, one of the largest conglomerates in the country. There is talks about tariffs being imposed on various other countries. I think companies who have faced supply chain shocks in the last 2-3 months, this is a great opportunity to look at a country like India. And nobody today wants to be over dependent on one country. Look at the staggering relationship between US and China today. It's like $450 billion of goods get imported from China to US. Even if India can get a piece of that, we are not going to be alone. There are going to be countries like Mexico, Indonesia, Brazil, Thailand, who are all going to be competing for that. We have the English-speaking workforce. We have very high-skilled workforce. The cost of labor is very cheap, and most importantly, you can cater to 1.3 billion India population. Over the years, one thing which doesn't get marketed very well by the media is India has clearly moved up the value chain. Today, from medical devices, electronics, energy efficient green transportation, power semiconductors, switches, rectifiers, all kinds of high-end components today are manufactured in India. 40% of the generic drugs sold in the US today is manufactured in India, produce all US FDA approved. And a lot of these things go unnoticed. India can scale up volume production to meet not just American needs, but also the needs of various other countries. I think this is the time to seriously look closely at low risk, high reward program. I'm sure many of you on this call, this may be the first time you could be looking at India. Maybe you could start off with an Indian partner to get started. Maybe try out India just from a buying perspective. You don't need to come and invest, just come and buy things from India. Look at the flexibility, look at the reduced overheads you will see. Look at the risk limitation, the risk minimizing things you will again see. India has 29 states, more eager to help American companies, local and global entrepreneurs. Some states have been doing extremely well. Gujarat is one of them, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Telangana. These are some of the states which have been doing better than some of the other states. You need to obviously get someone inside your company who has current experience in doing business in today's India. Alternatively, you can trust trusted advisors, all the large consultancy firms, the big four, the big three, the big global banks, the big investment banks, real estate services firms like ours, all of them are present. Otherwise, we won't be consuming those 110 million square feet of office space in the country. Alternatively, I think today you look at a country like ours, look at the infrastructure which is getting improved. You've seen harbors being expanded, airports being expanded, logistics becoming much better. Like Piyush Goyal mentioned, 100% FDI today is available in almost all the sectors. And look at American companies have had factories in India for decades today. It's nothing new. This is, I think this is India's global opportunity, like I said, to become that second big manufacturing base for global manufacturing companies. Again, look at high-end value-add engineering, high-end value manufacturing, contract manufacturing. Indian governments want to make sure infrastructure is developed. A lot of parts of the country, infrastructure is definitely becoming better. Land acquisition laws are being simplified. As we talk, the government is working on serious amount of plans, central and state governments. Environment clearances are becoming faster, and the government is fully focused on upskilling millions of people to meet the skill intensive agenda of the government. So a lot of companies, and this is all of us working for multinationals, know that sometimes a company culture can be stronger than a country culture. And the way that a lot of American companies have succeeded, it is possible for companies to build a common culture across geographies. As industries become more and more specialized, today it's all about speed and innovation. And today, as companies market their products faster, address customer needs faster, I think one needs to be having a very good speed and innovation, especially in a fast-moving environment. The government's programs such as Make in India, ease of doing business, things can be better, but we have significantly improved in our rankings in the last few years. We still know we have to compete with countries like Vietnam, Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia. But look at the size of those economies. India is far bigger. Look at the local population, the local domestic consumption possible. India again is far ahead of that. I think what India needs to do a little better maybe is the role of embassies and consulates. I think every Indian mission should market the country a lot more proactively. I'm sure they are trying, but something more can be done. The commercial council officers of all our consulates and embassies should contact representatives of any company which has ever shown interest to invest in India, and proactively market the positives of investing in India. Connectivity is definitely improving. Human resources are definitely improving over the years. So the next few years, where we see the largest amount of opportunities, I think there will be 4 sectors where we're going to be seeing the most amount of opportunities. First is electronics and high tech. Second would be pharma. Third would be chemical, and fourth will be auto and auto ancillary. Today, what we are seeing many state governments do is they are identifying land parcels which are available with different government authorities. In India, there are lots of state government authorities. They are identifying which are the land parcels which are still available. They're focusing on which are the 2 or 3 cities in each state which can be really marketed, which are like big brand names like Bangalore or Chennai or Mumbai or Pune or Hyderabad. The governments have also started creating a detailed infrastructure availability checklist on what does each of these sites have, what kind of power, what kind of water, what kind of downtime, what kind of telecom connectivity. All those things are being put in place. And many state governments I know are also putting in task forces to see how project approvals can be reduced and create single window clearances for approvals. Like I said, just 2-3 points to leave behind. Again, China +1. India will go that extra mile. to get in investments. And this is, I think, probably the best time for everyone on this call, anyone who's called to look at India as a serious manufacturing destination. With that, I'll hand it over to the moderator.
Thank you, Ramesh, for a fantastic presentation on, I would say, Advantage India. And let me request Kaku, Naushad, and Rakhi to, open their webcams so that I think we can proceed. Rakhi and Naushad, can you be there? Fantastic. Rakhi?
Yes, I have switched on my webcam. I hope I'm. Can you see me?
We are not able. No, we can't see you. Rakhi is the regional director of the Indo-American Chamber of
Yes.
Commerce.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rakhi Panda, the regional director of Indo-American Chamber of Commerce. Today, I'm delighted to introduce a robust resource for a single window assistance for business contemplating India as an investment destination. So they are our partner for this session and also next other sessions for this entire series, Invest India. Invest India is the India's national investment promotion and facilitation agency. They can be your first point of reference. And Invest India is an agency of Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India. They are under the Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. Thank you.
Well, can we quickly play that small AV?
Jugal?
Playing right now.
Sure.
Request all the panelists, Rakhi and Nilesh, to keep their camera on.
It's here, not dormant, neither redundant. It's pulsating, inspiring new ideas in IT services and product development for healthcare, supply chain, banking, financial services, and insurance, telecom, architecting tech evolution with artificial intelligence, big data, Internet of Things, blockchain. It's a future of transformative possibilities. A future we're carving at Futurism Technologies. Building your window to a new paradigm of digital transformation for the world, now and next. A window of smarter product lifecycle management to advance enterprise infrastructure with legacy integration. Create a digital roadmap for the new decade. Consult to realize products increasing productivity. Reduce time to market to increase ROI. A window perfected with our leadership in information technology, consulting, infrastructure and digital transformation with a global presence, a robust partner network, and a customer-focused quality approach. Backed with 18+ years of expertise in Internet of Things, artificial intelligence and machine learning, product development, blockchain, IT infrastructure, e-commerce. 6 pillars to think digital and carve the future of digital transformation that allows businesses to scale. Together, they have empowered our flexible delivery models. Etching 18 years of industry transformation for 1,000+ diverse clients, making us the ground zero for technology solutions and services to address enterprise vision, faster and with smarter approaches, with 3 major certifications and a passionate and diverse team of consultants and technologists. Solving problems, collaborating, and continuously learning. We're ready for transforming your world and its future. It's here, it's now. The future of digital transformation with Futurism Technologies.
So that was Futurism Technologies, our technology partner for this entire series. Over to you, Mr. Vikram C. and Naushad.
Nilesh, are you on mute?
Thank you, for both giving the background of Invest India. So that's a single focal point of contact. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, thank you. I think thanks Raki for showcasing Invest India, the government agency which is central single focus point for attracting investment into the country, and as also on the futurism. Naushad, with this, I would request you to give the vote of thanks for the fantastic speakers area of speakers which we had. So over to you, Naushad.
Thank you, Nilesh. Am I audible, Nilesh?
Yes, very much.
Okay. Sorry, I had to switch devices because there was some issue with my device. So there is a, as an organizer of a successful event, you have the onus of thanking a lot of people, and if one does not thank, if one misses out on any one of them, it doesn't do justice to all those who contributed in whatever form. Let me begin by the three panelists. Kaku, I think what you showcased about India, a lot of us would have been stumped by the kind of statistics and the facts that you presented, and I'm sure the participants enjoyed the talk that you gave. And I like the way you compared India not just with the developed economies but with USA. So that's fantastic. Chris, it was a surprise for me. He's sitting right next to me. It was a surprise for me that he was one of those who came in. Grand Hyatt came in before the first round of reforms that happened in 90s. His first hotel came in Delhi in 1984, and his highlighting of the tourism potential and importance was an eye opener for all of us. We always look at manufacturing, but services and tourism are great areas where the GDP can go up. Ramesh, my competitor from earlier avatar and a great friend now. It again, I thought it was fantastic observation that you pointed out that there are more US companies who are leasing space in India than Indian companies are actually one. And I also loved your China Plus One concept. So I thank all these three speakers for sparing time and coming and joining us to showcase Advantage India. Now I need to thank a lot of other people and request you to be patient and please allow me to do that. I first like to thank Mr. Deepak Bagla, Invest India, for showing confidence in Indo-American Chamber of Commerce to partner with us, and not only for this one first part, but the entire series. I thank you, Mr. Bagla. I'd like to thank Dave, Rajesh, Alison from Vedam, and Deepak from Calidry. I think both these organizations have worked hard, and from the statistics that I have from them, between them, they've reached out to over 20,000 connects in USA. So apart from those people who have logged in today, which is 1,000 plus, our message has reached out to 20,000 plus people in USA. That's a fantastic achievement for us. I'd like to thank Sheetal Pansare of Futurism for becoming our technology partner, and thanks to them we were able to increase our budgets on this webinar. I'd like to thank Jagdeep Ahluwalia of IICC Greater Houston, who came on board and helped spread the word of this Advantage India to their members. I'd like to thank Anand and Jugal for being fantastic support in our technology and helping us with all the ensuring that this was a blip-free webinar. I'd like to thank the immediate past president, national president of IICC, SK Sarkar, for guiding me on and giving me pointers on what my remarks should be and what direction I should take. And I'd be failing in my duty if I did not thank my able team headed by Kamal, Raki, Sujata, Vishnu, Sagar, Trupti, Kashish, Sujata, who have worked hard and done wonders in spreading the word of this message to everybody. And finally, I'd like to thank all those who have logged in and been patient in this 2 hour plus webinar. And thank you, everybody. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next part of the series, which we will soon announce. And thank you, Nilesh. Wonderful moderation. With that, I think I'll have the last word, and we'll close the session. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks to the President, Naushad. Yeah, thank you.